The morning mist clings to the fjord like the breath of sleeping gods, swirling around the carved dragon head that rises proudly from the bow of your longship. You stand at the water's edge, feeling the cold North Sea spray against your face as the crew makes final preparations for what may be the most important voyage of your life. The year is 987, and you are Erik Thorsson, 17 summers old, about to embark on your first great journey across the whale road to the mysterious lands beyond the sunset. Your father, Thor Eriksson, stands beside the ship's steering oar, his weathered hands checking the leather bindings one final time. He is a man carved from the same hard stone as the mountains that surround your village, shaped by decades of voyaging to lands so distant they exist only in the songs of skalds. His beard, streaked with silver like the foam on winter waves, moves gently in the morning breeze as he surveys his crew with the practiced eye of a man who has led warriors across unknown seas more times than you have fingers and toes. The longship herself is a masterwork of Norse craftsmanship, 30 paces from stem to stern, built from the finest oak trees that grow in the deep forests beyond your settlement. Her sides are painted with intricate patterns that tell the story of previous voyages, serpents and ravens, symbols of protection and guidance for those who dare to sail beyond the edge of the known world. The shields of your crew hang along her sides like a rainbow of colored wood and metal, each one bearing the personal symbol of its owner, each one representing a warrior willing to risk everything for the promise of adventure and wealth. You run your hand along the smooth wood of the ship's rail, feeling the grain of the oak beneath your palm. Every plank, every rope, every iron nail has been placed with the careful precision that separates a vessel capable of crossing the North Atlantic from driftwood that will break apart in the first storm. Your father supervised every aspect of her construction, working alongside the master shipwright through the long winter months, ensuring that when the time came to seek new lands, they would have a ship worthy of the journey. The crew is gathering now, 28 men chosen not just for their strength and skill with weapons, but for their ability to work together in the cramped confines of a longship during weeks at sea. There is Olaf the Red, whose massive frame can pull an oar through the heaviest seas, and whose knowledge of the stars rivals that of any learned man. Beside him stands Bjorn Ironhand, called so for his skill with the forge as much as his prowess in battle, a man whose calm wisdom has saved more than one expedition from disaster. Near the mast, adjusting the rigging with careful precision, you see Ragnar the far-travelled, whose knowledge of distant coasts and foreign customs has made him invaluable on voyages to lands where different gods are worshipped and strange languages are spoken. He has sailed beyond Iceland, beyond Greenland, to shores where the trees grow tall enough to touch the sky, and the rivers run thick with fish larger than a man's arm. The stories he tells around winter fires have filled your dreams since childhood, tales of vast forests and gentle peoples who have never seen iron weapons or heard the thunder of Thor's hammer. Your own equipment is carefully stowed in the space that will be yours for the duration of the voyage. Your sword, inherited from your grandfather, rests in its leather scabbard, the blade honed to razor sharpness and blessed by the village priest with runes of protection. Your mail shirt, laboriously crafted by the village smith over the course of many months, lies wrapped in oiled leather to protect it from the salt spray that will be your constant companion once you leave the shelter of the fjords. Your shield, painted with the image of a raven in honor of Odin, bears fresh scratches from your final practice session yesterday evening. But more important than weapons are the tools of survival at sea. Your share of the provisions includes dried fish, hard-baked bread that will last for weeks without spoiling, and blocks of aged cheese wrapped in cloth. A water barrel, carefully sealed and marked with your personal rune, contains enough fresh water to last one man for a fortnight if carefully rationed. Your sleeping furs, treated with oils to repel moisture, will be your bed and blanket during the long nights when the ship rocks gently on the swells, and the only sounds are the creaking of rope and timber and the soft splash of waves against the hull. The morning sun climbs higher, burning away the mist and revealing the full majesty of the fjord that has been your home since birth. Steep cliffs rise on either side, their faces carved by countless winters of ice and storm into fantastic shapes that the old stories say are the sleeping forms of giants from the early days of the world. Waterfalls cascade down the rock faces like silver ribbons, their sound a constant whisper that speaks of the mountain's ancient secrets. At the head of the fjord, your village nestles in a green valley where your people have raised their children and buried their dead for more generations than any man can count. Today you leave all of this behind, perhaps forever. The thought fills you with equal measures of excitement and sadness, the bitter-sweet knowledge that growing up means letting go of the comfortable certainties of childhood. Your mother, standing on the rocky shore with the other women and children, waves goodbye with tears in her eyes that she tries to hide. She knows, as all Viking women know, that the sea takes some men and returns others, and that the difference often lies in the hands of fate and the favor of the gods. Your father calls out in his strong voice the command that will begin your transformation from a village youth to a sea rover. Cast off. Let us see what the Norns have woven for us beyond the horizon. The crew moves with practiced efficiency, each man knowing his role in the complex dance of getting a longship underway. The mooring lines are cast off and pulled aboard, coiled neatly so they won't tangle when needed again. The great square sail, woven from the finest wool and dyed with colors that will remain bright even after months of sun and spray, is hoisted up the tall mast. The wind, which has been waiting patiently offshore like a faithful hound, fills the sail with a sound like distant thunder. You feel the ship come alive beneath your feet as the wind takes hold and begins to pull you away from the shore. The motion is unlike anything you've experienced on land, a fluid, living movement that speaks of deep waters and endless horizons. The longship cuts through the dark water of the fjord with the grace of a hunting seal, her bow wave spreading out in a V-shaped wake that marks your passage toward the open sea. As the familiar landmarks of home fall behind, you take your place at one of the oars. The rowing is not needed yet, with the wind filling the sail so perfectly, but your father believes that every man aboard should be ready to pull his weight when the time comes. The oar feels solid and familiar in your hands, worn smooth by countless previous voyages, and you settle into the rhythm that will become as natural as breathing during the weeks ahead. The mouth of the fjord opens before you, like a gateway to another world. Beyond the sheltering cliffs, the North Sea stretches to the horizon, its surface painted in shades of blue and grey that shift and change with every passing cloud. This is the Whale Road, the Dolphin's Bath, the Gannet's Highway, all the poetic names your people use for the vast waters that separate the known lands from the realms of mystery and legend. Your destination lies far to the west, beyond the edge of any map, in a land that Ragnar has described, but which no one from your village has ever seen. He speaks of a coast where vast forests stretch inland farther than a man can walk in a month, where rivers teem with salmon, and the hunting is better than anything in the homeland. The natives, he says, are mostly peaceful, willing to trade furs and amber for iron tools and weapons. It is a land of opportunity for those brave enough to cross the Whale Road and wise enough to deal fairly with its inhabitants. But first, you must survive the crossing itself, and as the longship clears the mouth of the fjord and feels the full force of the North Sea swells, you begin to understand why so many songs are sung about the courage required to sail beyond sight of land. The waves here are larger than anything in the protected waters of the fjord, and the ship rises and falls with a motion that makes your stomach protest, despite all your preparation. Olaf the Red, seeing your discomfort, grins, and passes you a piece of dried ginger root to chew. "The seasickness will pass," he says, with the confidence of a man who has felt the same discomfort on his first voyage. "By tomorrow, you'll have found your sea legs, and by the time we reach the new land, you'll be sorry to leave the ocean behind." The wind holds steady from the east, driving you steadily westward at a pace that eats up the miles between your homeland and your destination. Your father stands at the steering oar, reading the subtle signs of weather and current that determine whether a voyage succeeds or ends in disaster. He watches the color of the water, the shape of the clouds, the behavior of the seabirds that wheel overhead, gathering information that will help him navigate across waters where no landmarks exist. Navigation on the open ocean is an art that takes years to master, a combination of careful observation and inherited wisdom passed down from father to son. Your father carries in his memory the sailing directions for dozens of routes, learned from other navigators and refined through his own experience. He knows that certain birds indicate the presence of land even when it lies beyond the horizon, that the color of the water changes as you approach a coastline, that the patterns of waves and swells can reveal hidden dangers or safe harbors. The sun reaches its peak and begins its slow descent toward the western horizon, marking the passage of your first day on the whale road. The motion of the ship has become more familiar now, and you find yourself beginning to anticipate the rise and fall of the swells. The crew settles into the routine that will govern their lives for the next several weeks, each man responsible for specific duties that keep the ship sailing safely toward its destination. Mealtimes are simple affairs, with dried fish and hard bread washed down with weak ale from wooden cups that must be carefully guarded against the ship's motion. Fresh water is too precious to waste, rationed carefully to ensure that the barrels will last until you reach land again. Every drop that falls overboard is a step closer to disaster, and you quickly learn to drink slowly and carefully, making each sip count. As evening approaches, your father begins the process of heaving to for the night, adjusting the sail and steering oar to keep the ship stable while allowing the crew to rest. Ocean navigation in the darkness is treacherous even for experienced mariners, and the wise course is to wait for dawn before continuing westward. The anchor is dropped, though in water this deep, it serves more as a sea anchor to keep the bow pointed into the waves than as a way to hold position. The sleeping arrangements on a longship are cramped but efficient, each man claiming a space just wide enough for his body and his gear. You spread your sleeping furs in the space assigned to you, grateful for their warmth as the night air carries the chill of the northern latitudes. Above your head, the stars appear one by one, the same constellations that have guided Norse navigators for generations. Ragnar points out the key stars that will guide your course, teaching you the names your people have given to the celestial landmarks that replace the familiar mountains and rivers of home. The North Star, Polaris, holds its steady position while the other stars wheel around it, providing a constant reference point for navigation. The Great Bear points the way to true north, while other constellations mark the seasons and the passage of time on long voyages. The night passes peacefully, with the ship riding the swells like a sleeping seabird. You wake several times to the sound of water against the hull and the creaking of rope and timber, but these are the normal sounds of a ship at sea, not the warning noises that would signal danger. The watch changes every few hours, with experienced crew members taking turns to monitor the weather and watch for other ships or unexpected hazards. Dawn comes slowly, a gradual lightening of the eastern sky that reveals the endless expanse of grey-green water stretching to every horizon. There is no sign of land in any direction, nothing but the ship and her crew alone on the vast ocean. For a moment, you feel the weight of that isolation, the understanding that you are completely dependent on the skills of your companions and the favor of the gods for survival. But with the sunrise comes renewed confidence, as your father checks the wind direction and orders the sail hoisted for another day's sailing. The breeze is still favorable, though lighter than yesterday, and the ship settles into the steady westward course that will, the gods willing, bring you to the new land in 2 weeks' time. The second day brings new challenges and new lessons. The wind shifts during the morning, requiring constant adjustments to the sail and steering oar to maintain the desired course. You learn to read the subtle signs that indicate wind changes, the way the surface of the water responds to atmospheric pressure, the behavior of the clouds that can predict weather hours in advance. Bjorn Ironhand begins teaching you the art of rope work, showing you how to splice lines that have been weakened by salt water and constant stress. A ship is only as strong as her rigging, he explains, as his skilled fingers work the hemp fibers back together. Learn to maintain every rope and line, and they will serve you faithfully. Neglect them, and they will fail when you need them most. The lessons continue throughout the day as you gradually absorb the countless skills required to survive and thrive on long ocean voyages. You learn to read the color and consistency of the clouds to predict weather changes, to identify the different types of seabirds and what their presence means for navigation, to adjust the ship's trim for maximum speed and stability in varying wind conditions. By the third day, the routine of shipboard life has become second nature. You wake before dawn to take your turn at watch, scanning the horizon for signs of weather or other ships. Breakfast is a quick affair of dried fish and hard bread, followed by the daily inspection of rigging and equipment that prevents small problems from becoming major disasters. The midday meal provides a break from duties and a chance to listen to stories from the more experienced crew members. Ragnar begins telling you about the land you're sailing toward, describing the forests and rivers that await your arrival. The trees grow taller than our masts, he says, his eyes distant with memory. Pine and oak and birch, stretching inland farther than you can imagine. The rivers are full of salmon in the spring, and the hunting is better than anything we have at home. Deer and elk, bears and wolves, all manner of creatures that provide meat and fur for those wise enough to take only what they need. He also speaks of the people who inhabit this distant land, describing them as generally peaceful, but capable of fierce resistance if threatened. They are skilled hunters and craftsmen, he explains, but they work in stone and bone rather than iron. They are curious about our metal tools and weapons, and willing to trade furs and amber for things they cannot make themselves. Treat them with respect, and they will do the same for you. The fourth day brings the first real test of the voyage, as dark clouds gather on the northern horizon and the wind begins to shift ominously. Your father watches the approaching weather with the intense concentration of a man whose decisions will determine whether his crew lives or dies. The barometric pressure is dropping. You can feel it in your bones, and the seabirds are flying closer to the water, sure signs that a storm is approaching. Reef the sail, your father commands, and the crew springs into action with the precise coordination of men who have faced such situations many times before. The great square sail is partially lowered and secured with additional lines, reducing the area exposed to the wind while maintaining enough canvas to provide steerage and stability. The storm hits just after midday, with winds that howl across the water like the voices of angry spirits. The waves build rapidly, growing from manageable swells to towering walls of water that dwarf the longship and make you acutely aware of how small and fragile your vessel is in the face of the ocean's power. The ship climbs each wave like a mountain, pauses for a heart-stopping moment at the crest, then plunges down the far side into the trough beyond. Your job during the storm is to bail water that inevitably finds its way into the ship despite her sound construction. The wooden bucket feels heavy in your hands as you work alongside the other crew members, forming a human chain that passes water from the bilge back to the sea where it belongs. The work is exhausting, but it's also essential. A ship that takes on too much water will become sluggish and unresponsive, eventually foundering in the heavy seas. For 6 hours, the storm tests every aspect of the ship's construction and the crew's seamanship. Waves break over the bow, sending cascades of icy water down the length of the ship. The wind tears at the rigging with fingers that seem determined to strip away every line and sail. Through it all, your father remains at the steering oar, fighting to keep the ship's bow pointed into the waves, preventing her from turning broadside where the full force of the sea could roll her over. When the storm finally passes, moving off to the southeast like a great dark beast, satisfied with the terror it has caused, you feel as though you have been tested by the gods themselves and found worthy. The ship has come through with no major damage. The crew has worked together with the efficiency of a well-trained war band, and you have learned lessons about seamanship and courage that no amount of talk could have taught you. The 5th day dawns clear and bright, with a steady wind from the northeast that pushes you steadily toward your destination. The crew's spirits are high after successfully weathering their first major storm, and there is a sense of confidence and camaraderie that comes from shared hardship overcome. You realize that you are no longer just a collection of individuals sharing a ship, but a true crew bound together by mutual dependence and respect. Olaf the Red begins teaching you the finer points of reading wind and weather, showing you how to interpret the subtle signs that experienced sailors use to predict conditions hours or even days in advance. See how the clouds form in layers, he points out, indicating the wispy formations high overhead. That means the weather will remain fair for at least another day. But watch for clouds that build upward like towers. Those bring wind and rain, and wise sailors prepare accordingly. The lessons continue as you learn to identify the different types of waves and what they reveal about wind conditions and underwater obstacles. Long, regular swells indicate steady winds far from shore, while choppy, confused seas suggest either changing weather or the proximity of land that disrupts the natural wave patterns. Every aspect of the ocean's behavior has meaning for those who know how to read the signs. By the 6th day, you have begun to feel like a true member of the crew, rather than just a passenger along for the voyage. Your skills with rope and sail are improving daily, and you can now splice lines, reef sails, and adjust rigging with confidence. More importantly, you have gained the respect of the experienced sailors through your willingness to work hard and learn quickly. The routine of shipboard life has become deeply ingrained now. The watch schedule that ensures someone is always monitoring conditions, the careful rationing of food and water, the daily maintenance that keeps the ship in top condition. You have learned to sleep despite the constant motion, to eat efficiently despite the cramped conditions, to work as part of a team where every man's life depends on his companion's skills and dedication. The 7th day brings excitement as Bjorn Ironhand spots birds that indicate the relatively nearby presence of land. They are species that rarely venture far from shore, and their presence means that your destination is likely no more than a day or two away. The crew's anticipation is palpable as everyone scans the western horizon for the first glimpse of the new land. Your father increases the watch schedule, with men constantly stationed at the bow to watch for signs of shallow water or underwater obstacles. The approaches to unknown coasts are always dangerous, full of rocks and reefs that can hole a ship before the crew realizes the danger. Navigation becomes even more critical now, as the margin for error shrinks with every mile. The water begins to change color as you approach the continental shelf, shifting from the deep blue of the open ocean to the greenish hue that indicates shallower depths. Seaweed appears floating on the surface, torn from underwater forests by the action of waves and currents. The air itself seems different, carrying scents of land, pine forests, flowering meadows, the rich earth that speaks of solid ground after weeks on the ever-moving sea. On the morning of the 8th day, Olaf the Red shouts the words that every crew member has been longing to hear. Land ho, land off the starboard bow. You rush to the ship's rail and peer westward, straining your eyes to make out the faint line that separates sea from sky. At first, you see nothing. Then gradually, your vision adjusts, and you can make out the low, dark outline of a coastline, perhaps 10 miles away. It doesn't look like much from this distance, just a smudge on the horizon, but it represents the culmination of everything you have worked toward during the long days at sea. As the ship draws closer, the coastline resolves into clearer detail. You can see tall trees growing down almost to the water's edge, their dark green foliage speaking of rich soil and abundant rainfall. Rocky headlands jut out into the sea, while between them lie bays and inlets that promise safe harbors for landing. It is a coast that looks wild and untouched, vast and full of potential for those brave enough to explore its secrets. Your father begins the careful process of approaching an unknown shore, reducing sail and posting extra lookouts to watch for underwater hazards. The ship moves slowly now, with lead lines being cast regularly to measure the depth of the water beneath the keel. Everyone aboard understands that after successfully crossing the North Atlantic, it would be a bitter irony to lose the ship on some unseen reef within sight of the new land. A suitable landing spot is identified, a protected bay with a beach where the ship can be pulled up safely. As the longship's keel grates against the sand and gravel of this foreign shore, you feel a profound sense of accomplishment mixed with anticipation for what lies ahead. You have crossed the Whale Road, survived storm and uncertainty, and arrived at a land that few men from your homeland have ever seen. The crew works together to pull the ship well up on the beach, securing her against the possibility of changing tides or sudden storms. Equipment is unloaded and sorted, temporary shelters are erected, and guards are posted to watch for any signs of the native inhabitants. Everything must be done carefully and systematically, for you are now in a land where the rules are different, and mistakes could have serious consequences. As you stand on the beach of this new world, feeling solid ground beneath your feet for the first time in more than a week, you realize that your life has been fundamentally changed by this voyage. You are no longer just a village youth from a Norwegian fjord. You are now a Viking explorer, a man who has dared to sail beyond the edge of the known world and lived to tell the tale. The forest that stretches inland from the beach seems to pulse with life, filled with rustling sounds and distant calls that speak of abundant wildlife and hidden mysteries. The air carries scents completely different from your homeland, the rich, loamy smell of ancient forests, the sweetness of unknown flowers, the musk of animals you have never encountered. It is an intoxicating mixture that speaks of a land teeming with possibilities. The next morning brings your first encounter with the inhabitants of this new land. You wake to find Ragnar speaking quietly with your father near the water's edge, both men gazing toward the forest with expressions of alert attention. Following their gaze, you see a figure standing at the edge of the trees, a man dressed in clothing made from animal skins, carrying a spear with a stone point that catches the morning light. The native man studies your camp with intelligent eyes, taking in every detail of your equipment, your ship, your behavior. He shows no signs of fear or aggression, but neither does he approach. He simply observes, gathering information about these strange visitors who have appeared on his people's shores. After several long minutes, he melts back into the forest as silently as he appeared, leaving you to wonder if the encounter was real or imagined. Your father calls the crew together to discuss this development. "We have made contact," he says, his voice carrying the authority that has guided you safely across the ocean. The question now is whether it will be peaceful or hostile. Everything we do in the next few days will determine how our peoples regard each other for generations to come. The decision is made to remain at the beach camp while sending out small patrols to explore the immediate area and attempt to establish formal contact with the native people. You are chosen to be part of the first exploration party, along with Ragnar, Bjorn Ironhand, and 3 other experienced crew members. The responsibility weighs heavily on your shoulders. You are about to become one of the first Norse explorers to venture into this mysterious land. The forest through which you travel is unlike anything from your homeland. The trees are massive, some of them so large that it would take a dozen men holding hands to encircle their trunks. They rise straight and tall toward a canopy so thick that little sunlight reaches the forest floor, creating a green twilight that seems to exist outside of normal time. Ferns grow in the understory, some of them taller than a man, their fronds creating intricate patterns of shadow and filtered light. The path you follow is clearly maintained, with fallen logs moved aside and low branches cut back to allow easy passage. This is evidence of regular use by the native people, and you move forward with weapons ready, but not drawn, prepared for whatever encounter might await. The sounds of the forest surround you, bird calls from high in the canopy, the rustle of small animals in the underbrush, the distant sound of running water that speaks of streams and rivers. After several hours of careful travel, you emerge into a large clearing where the native village spreads out before you like something from a vivid dream. The buildings are unlike anything you have ever seen, constructed primarily from the bark of trees and shaped into graceful curves that seem to grow naturally from the landscape. The largest structures are long houses that could easily shelter dozens of people, while smaller buildings serve as workshops, storage areas, and seasonal dwellings. The village location has been chosen with obvious care, situated beside a river that provides fresh water and serves as a highway for the elegant boats you see pulled up along its banks. Gardens stretch between the buildings, filled with plants you don't recognize, but which are clearly being cultivated with skill accumulated over generations. Children play in the open areas between the houses, their games interrupted as they notice the approach of strangers. Your arrival creates a stir of excitement and curiosity rather than alarm. Adults emerge from the buildings, gathering in small groups to observe the visitors while maintaining a respectful distance. You notice that while some of the men carry spears or bows, these weapons are held casually rather than in threatening positions. The overall atmosphere is one of caution, mixed with genuine interest in these unexpected guests. An elderly man approaches your group, moving with the dignity and confidence of a leader. His hair is white with age, but his eyes are sharp and intelligent, and his bearing suggests someone accustomed to making important decisions. He greets Ragnar with what appears to be genuine warmth, speaking words that sound like a formal welcome, while making gestures that clearly invite your party to enter the village. Through Ragnar's translation and patient gesture-based communication, you learn that the elderly man is the village chief, whose name sounds like Mohegan when you attempt to pronounce it. Ragnar explains that this means wolf in their language, a name that speaks of strength and wisdom. The chief remembers Ragnar from previous visits and is curious about the new faces in the group, particularly interested in you as the youngest member of the party. The tour of the village that follows reveals a level of sophistication that challenges every assumption you had about these people. The long houses are marvels of engineering, their curved walls designed to shed rain and snow while providing maximum interior space with minimal use of materials. The construction techniques involve no metal fasteners, yet create structures of remarkable strength and durability. The workshops scattered throughout the village showcase various crafts practiced by the people. In one building, you watch skilled artisans working with stone, shaping tools and weapons with techniques that produce edges nearly as sharp as metal. Another workshop is devoted to working with wood, where craftsmen create everything from small household items to the frameworks for the elegant boats you saw along the riverbank. Perhaps most fascinating is the workshop where animal skins are processed into the soft, flexible leather that forms the basis for much of the native clothing. The process involves techniques completely unknown to you, using materials derived from plants and trees to transform raw hides into leather that is both durable and comfortable. You watch in amazement as skilled workers manipulate the materials with movements that speak of generations of accumulated knowledge. As evening approaches, you are invited to join Chief Mahigan's family for the evening meal. The chief's dwelling is one of the larger longhouses, its interior divided into areas for different functions, but all flowing together in a harmonious whole. The cooking area centers around a fire pit, where a meal is being prepared that fills the air with tantalizing aromas, unlike anything from your homeland. The food, when it is served, proves to be a revelation of flavors and textures completely different from anything you have experienced. There are various types of corn, prepared in ways that bring out different aspects of their flavor and nutrition. Fish from the river, cooked with herbs and spices that enhance rather than mask their natural taste. Wild vegetables gathered from the forest, some served raw, and others cooked in combinations that create entirely new flavors. But perhaps most impressive is the stew that serves as the centerpiece of the meal, a complex preparation that combines meat, vegetables, and grains in a way that creates something far greater than the sum of its parts. The meat appears to be from deer or elk, tender and flavorful, while the vegetables add color and texture that make each bite interesting. It is food that nourishes both body and spirit, prepared with a level of skill that rivals anything you have tasted. The conversation during the meal is facilitated by Ragnar's translation, but you find that much communication takes place through gestures, expressions, and the universal language of shared experience. Chief Mahigan is curious about your homeland, asking questions about your customs, your way of life, your reasons for making the dangerous journey across the ocean. His questions demonstrate both intelligence and genuine interest in understanding different ways of living. In return, you learn about the life of this village and the larger community of which it is part. The chief explains that their people follow the seasons, moving between different locations as resources become available or depleted. The village you are visiting is their summer settlement, positioned to take advantage of the best fishing in the river and the peak growing season for their gardens. In winter, they move to more sheltered locations inland, where hunting is better and protection from storms is more complete. Over the following days, you are invited to participate in various activities that give you deeper insight into the native way of life. You join hunting expeditions that venture into the forest, learning techniques of tracking and stealth that are completely different from anything practiced in your homeland. The native hunters move through the forest with a silence and efficiency that seems almost supernatural, reading signs invisible to your eyes and communicating through gestures so subtle they might as well be telepathic. The weapons used by the hunters are marvels of ingenuity, designed to take maximum advantage of available materials while achieving remarkable effectiveness. Bows are crafted from woods selected for their specific properties, with strings made from animal sinews that provide both strength and flexibility. Arrows are works of art, as well as functional tools, their points knapped from stone with precision that rivals the finest metalwork. You participate in fishing expeditions that take you several miles upstream from the village, traveling in boats that are themselves marvels of engineering. Made from birch bark stretched over wooden frames, these craft are incredibly light and maneuverable, capable of carrying substantial loads while drawing only inches of water. The fishing techniques employed involve methods completely unknown in your homeland, using nets and traps that take advantage of the fish's natural behaviors. The cultural exchange proves beneficial to both groups. Your iron tools and weapons are highly valued by the native people, while their furs, carved objects, and knowledge of local resources are treasures beyond price to your crew. More importantly, friendships develop that transcend the barriers of language and culture. bonds between individuals who recognize common humanity despite surface differences. You find yourself particularly drawn to a young hunter named Ayana, whose name means eternal blossom, and whose skill in the forest exceeds that of men twice her age. She teaches you to identify edible plants, to read the subtle signs that indicate the presence of game, to move through the forest without disturbing the natural rhythms of wildlife. In return, you show her the construction and use of Norse weapons, the techniques of metalworking that create tools of unprecedented sharpness and durability. The days pass in a blur of new experiences and growing understanding. You participate in ceremonies that honor the spirits of the hunt, learn songs that preserve the history and wisdom of the people, assist with the construction of new buildings that will serve the community through the coming winter. Each activity reveals another layer of sophistication in a culture that has learned to live in harmony with its environment, while maintaining the comforts and necessities of civilized life. But eventually, the time comes to return to your ship and prepare for the voyage home. The approaching winter makes further delay dangerous, and your father is eager to bring news of your discoveries back to your homeland. The farewells are emotional affairs, with gifts exchanged and promises made for future visits. Chief Mohegan presents you with a necklace of carved bone and polished stones, a token that will identify you as a friend should you ever return to this land. The journey back to your ship takes on the character of a triumphal procession as you are accompanied by a large group of villagers who want to see the vessel that carried you across the ocean. Their reaction to the longship confirms your growing appreciation for the remarkable achievement your voyage represents. These people, who are skilled boat builders themselves, immediately recognize the advanced technology and craftsmanship that makes ocean voyaging possible. The trading that takes place when your two groups meet at the ship proves mutually beneficial, with both sides offering items that are highly valued by the other. The loading of trade goods and supplies for the return journey creates a festive atmosphere as both groups work together to secure the valuable cargo. When the time for departure finally arrives, you help push the longship back into the water, feeling the familiar motion as she responds to the waves. The voyage home begins with favorable conditions that allow rapid progress away from the coast. As the shoreline disappears behind you, you feel a complex mixture of emotions that reflects the profound impact of your experiences in the new land. You are eager to return home and share your discoveries with family and friends, but you are also sad to leave behind the wonders you have witnessed and the friendships you have formed. The return journey proves to be more than just a reversal of your outbound passage. You are now an experienced sailor, skilled in the arts of navigation and seamanship that were mysteries when you first left home. Your knowledge of wind and weather, your ability to read the subtle signs that indicate changing conditions, your competence in handling the ship's equipment, all these skills have been hard-won through direct experience and careful observation. The crew dynamics have also evolved during your time in the new land. The shared experiences of exploration and cultural contact have forged bonds between the men that go beyond simple working relationships. You have become brothers in the truest sense, united by common dangers faced and overcome, by discoveries made and treasures won through collective effort and mutual support. Your own status within the group has changed as well. No longer the youngest and least experienced member of the crew, you have proven yourself worthy of respect and responsibility. The other men seek your opinions and include you in important decisions about the conduct of the voyage. Your knowledge of the native people and their customs makes you valuable for planning future expeditions to these distant shores. The weeks at sea provide ample time for reflection on the magnitude of what you have accomplished and the ways in which the experience has changed your understanding of the world and your place in it. You have seen that there are other ways of living, other solutions to the challenges of human existence, other values and priorities that can guide individual and community life. These insights will influence your thinking for the rest of your life. The knowledge you have gained extends far beyond simple geographical information about new lands and their inhabitants. You have learned about yourself, your capabilities, your limitations, your capacity for growth and adaptation when faced with completely unfamiliar circumstances. You have discovered strengths you did not know you possessed and developed skills you never imagined you would need. Perhaps most importantly, you have gained perspective on your own culture and way of life. Seeing how other people organize their societies and solve their problems has given you new appreciation for both the strengths and weaknesses of Norse civilization. You understand now that your people's ways are not the only possible approaches to human organization, and that there is much to be learned from contact with other cultures. The ocean crossing proceeds without major incident, though you encounter several storms that test your newly acquired seamanship skills. Each challenge met successfully increases your confidence and reinforces the lessons learned during your outbound voyage. You find yourself taking on greater responsibility for navigation and ship handling, trusted by your father and the other experienced sailors to make decisions that affect the safety of the entire crew. One evening, as you stand watch under a star-filled sky, Ragnar joins you at the ship's rail. The old explorer has been unusually quiet during the return voyage, and you sense that he has something important to say. After a long silence, he speaks in a voice barely audible above the sound of wind and waves. "You have done well on this voyage, young Erik," he says, using the formal tone that indicates serious conversation. "You left home as a boy seeking adventure, but you return as a man who has proven himself worthy of respect. More than that, you have shown wisdom in your dealings with the native people, understanding that strength comes not from domination, but from cooperation and mutual respect." His words carry weight that goes beyond simple praise. Ragnar's approval means that you have truly earned your place among the ranks of experienced explorers, that your transformation from village youth to seasoned voyager is complete. The recognition fills you with pride, but also with awareness of the responsibilities that come with such status. "The knowledge you have gained," Ragnar continues, "makes you valuable not just as a sailor, but as a bridge between our peoples and theirs. There will be other voyages, other opportunities to build on the foundations we have laid. Your understanding of their customs and language will be essential for establishing the kind of lasting relationships that benefit everyone involved." As the familiar mountains of your homeland finally appear on the horizon, you feel the excitement of homecoming mixed with awareness that you are returning as a fundamentally changed person. The village where you were born and raised looks smaller than you remembered, but it is still home, still the place where your roots are deepest and your connections strongest. The welcome you receive when the longship finally enters your home, fjord, exceeds even your highest expectations. The entire village turns out to greet the returning expedition, eager to hear tales of your journey and to see the treasures you have brought back from beyond the edge of the world. Your parents embrace you with tears of joy and relief, amazed at how much you have changed during the months of your absence. Your mother runs her hands over your shoulders and arms, feeling the new muscle developed through weeks of hard work at sea and in the forests of the new land. Your father studies your face, noting the confidence and maturity that have replaced the uncertainty of youth. Both seem proud, but also slightly awed by the transformation they see, as if they are meeting their son for the first time. The celebration that follows your return lasts for days, as the crew members take turns telling stories of the voyage and displaying the goods acquired through trade with the native people. The furs are of incredible quality, softer and warmer than anything available locally. The carved objects demonstrate artistic skills that rival the best Norse craftsmanship, while the plant materials and medicines represent knowledge that could prove invaluable for treating illnesses and injuries. Your own role in these celebrations is significant, as you have proven yourself worthy of inclusion among the legendary explorers and adventurers who have brought fame to your people. The village children gather around you with wide eyes as you describe the giant trees and strange animals of the distant land, the peaceful people who welcomed strangers with generosity and wisdom, the skills and knowledge that could benefit your own community. The village elders question you closely about the native people and their ways, recognizing that your observations could provide valuable insights for future relations between the two cultures. Your descriptions of their agricultural techniques, their methods of food preservation, their approaches to conflict resolution, all of these represent potential improvements to your own society's practices. But perhaps most important are the trade possibilities you have identified. The native people's desire for iron tools and weapons creates opportunities for profitable exchange, while their furs and other products will be highly valued in Norse markets. The establishment of regular trade routes could bring prosperity to your village and strengthen the bonds between distant peoples. As the immediate excitement of your return settles into routine, you find yourself sought out by young men eager to hear about your adventures and perhaps earn places on future expeditions. Your success has inspired others to dream of their own voyages to distant lands, and you realize that you have become a role model for a new generation of explorers. The winter months provide time for planning and preparation for future voyages. Your knowledge of the new land makes you invaluable as an advisor for subsequent expeditions, while your proven skills as a sailor and explorer ensure that you will be welcomed aboard any ship planning to sail the whale road to distant lands. You work with shipbuilders to incorporate lessons learned from observing native boat construction, with traders to identify the most valuable goods for exchange, with navigators to refine sailing directions for the western route. Your relationship with your family has changed as well. No longer the dependent child who left home months ago, you are now a contributing adult whose experiences and knowledge are valued by the community. Your parents treat you with new respect, seeking your opinions on important matters and including you in decisions that affect the family's future. But you also feel the weight of responsibility that comes with your new status. People look to you for leadership and guidance, expecting you to use your knowledge and experience for the benefit of the community. The young men who seek to follow in your footsteps depend on your wisdom to guide their own preparations for voyaging, while the village elders rely on your insights to inform their decisions about future relations with distant peoples. As spring approaches and the ice begins to break up in the fjords, talk turns to organizing another expedition to the new land. Your father is eager to return, both to continue the profitable trade relationships established during your first voyage and to explore other parts of the vast coastline you discovered. Other experienced sailors express interest in joining such an expedition, attracted by the stories of wealth and adventure you have brought back. You find yourself torn between the desire to return to the wonders you left behind and the obligations you now have to your home community. The new land calls to you with promises of further discoveries and deeper friendships with the native people. But your growing responsibilities as a leader and advisor make it difficult to simply sail away again. The decision, when it comes, reflects the maturity and wisdom you have gained through your experiences. Rather than abandoning your community to seek personal adventure, you choose to help organize and plan the next expedition while remaining at home to oversee trade arrangements and prepare the next generation of voyagers. It is a choice that demonstrates your evolution from adventurous youth to responsible adult, from seeker of personal glory to protector of community welfare. You have sailed with the Vikings, crossed unknown seas to discover new worlds, and returned home to tell the tale. It is an achievement that places you among the greatest heroes of your people's history, a deed that will inspire future generations to seek their own adventures beyond the familiar boundaries of the known world. But more than that, you have helped establish the first links in a chain of contact and communication that will eventually span continents and transform the understanding of what is possible for human civilization. The story of your voyage will be told and retold around winter fires for generations to come, growing in the telling until it becomes part of the eternal saga of human courage and curiosity. Children not yet born will thrill to hear how you and your companions dared to sail beyond the sunset, how you survived storms and unknown dangers to reach a land of wonders, how you forged friendships with peoples whose very existence had been unknown to your ancestors. You have become part of something larger than yourself, part of the great human story of exploration and discovery that has carried our species to every corner of the earth and beyond. Your name will be remembered as long as people value courage over comfort, adventure over security, the call of the unknown over the safety of the familiar. You have sailed with the Vikings, and in doing so, you have helped expand the boundaries of the possible for all who will follow in your wake. As you stand on the shore of your home fjord, watching the ships of the new expedition disappear into the morning mist, you feel a deep satisfaction that comes from knowing you have played your part in one of humanity's greatest adventures. The young men aboard those ships carry with them the knowledge and wisdom you have gained, the friendships and alliances you have forged, the dreams and possibilities you have discovered. They sail not just toward a new land, but toward a new understanding of what it means to be human in a world full of wonders yet to be explored. Your voyage is ended, but your story has just begun. In the years to come, you will help guide the expansion of your people into new lands, the development of trade relationships that span oceans, the growth of understanding between cultures that once seemed impossibly different. You have sailed with the Vikings, and in doing so, you have helped write the next chapter in the endless story of human exploration and discovery.